Hi, everybody. Belated Merry Christmas and early Happy New Year. This is Erica from In the Company of Cards, and as you see, I am with my favorite monthly guest. This is Dr. Lena Rodriguez from Tarot Down Under. If you're not following her channel, you certainly should. She's also on YouTube like me. And we come together once a month. For those of you who are new and don't know, we come together once a month to just share conversation. So we thought about pulling cards, and then we decided that we were not going to pull cards because, Lena, you and I never pull cards when we are together. We always
Yeah.
pull cards when we are on our separate channels. That's what we're known
Yes.
for. That's what we do. And that you will see us doing that. Me, I do it during the week. Today is Friday, so it's on Sundays I don't pull cards. I usually have a guest. But today is Thursday, and you're seeing this on Thursday. And so this is like what a Sunday conversation would look like on my channel. But normally,
That's a
yeah,
good way of
yeah.
putting it.
But
Yes.
normally we each individually do our own thing and pull cards, but we come together once a month to just talk. I as a, Black American from the East Coast living now on the West Coast, Lena, you represent the whole other portion of the world and are
The rest of the
well, the
world.
rest
It's
of
a
the
big
world.
job. It's a big
She
job.
and of course it's the rest of the world because as you can imagine, she's coming to us from tomorrow.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Yes.
Coming to us from tomorrow and from an entirely other season. So happy summer solstice to you all that you just
Thank you. And
had
happy
a winter
winter
one.
solstice to all of you watching because the
Thank
energy
you.
of the solstices still goes on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Lena, welcome back. I know you've just come back from a trip, a European extravaganza, and welcome
Yes.
back.
Thank you so much. And it was fascinating. So I went to Greece and Turkey and Italy. So it was very interesting getting people's perspectives from those countries
Mhm.
on what's going on in the US.
Right, and we
And
thought
they
we'd
are
start
like
with
a,
that. That's what we thought we'd start with because, at least
yeah,
both of us, you and I, do deal a lot with the American perspective, and we will address that. But the world is wide. We should take advantage of the fact that you are from not the U.S. And so, can you
mm,
tell us about this Resistance Without Borders movement? And then we can.
right. Well, that's Charlie Angus in Canada,
Mhm.
and he has emerged with his own podcast. Please check him out, everybody. Wonderful guy.
I'll put him in the show
And
notes.
yeah, and he coined this phrase, resistance without borders. And I pricked up my ears because I thought, this is it. We all get locked into our nationalistic silos,
Mhm.
good, bad, and ugly. And we need to start thinking more as global citizens. And by doing that, because with all the horror of ongoing wars and tensions and the bad behavior of Trump, etc., the world is in a very rocky space right now. The old world orders that were set after the Second World War, the strategic alliances, are now being challenged because he's thrown them over his shoulder and kept walking.
It's horrifying. It's horrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea of, for example, Canada or Europe being enemies of the United
Yeah.
States, which is pretty much what he's declared that they are, is
Yeah.
just unfathomable.
Absolutely. And what we all sort of took for granted, um, we now can't,
No,
even in the most basic way. And so for Europe to say, which they did this week, they actually said it out loud. They said Trump represents a systemic enemy to Europe now, and they can't rely on the United States for anything, particularly in regard for supporting Ukraine or any other issues. And so that causes ripple effects within each of those countries.
right. Well, it's
How
not
much
only
do
that you
they
can't
spend?
not only that you can't rely on the U.S. I mean, I hate to say it. You have to be wary of the United States.
Yes, that's why the language changed.
Hmm.
So during Trump's first administration, I think I'm safe in saying, in general terms, the world leaders went, this is horrifying, this is mad, we've got to just weather the storm. And they
Right,
did.
right.
Second time, he launched in with the tariffs, which I think is the issue that's going to bring him undone, by the way.
I think so too.
Yes. So not only did it shock everybody because there was no preference for people who'd been allies for 80 years or anything, it was the randomness of the tariffs and the fact they'd vacillate on his mood in the middle of the night
Right, right.
has caused economic uncertainty at best and chaos at worst, not only in the US, but globally. So what's happened is there's a shift from the hegemony of the US as a superpower and people relating to that, it's actually massively weakened that.
Yeah.
So it's thought in Europe, the thinking is he's letting Putin have Europe, he's letting China have Asia, and the US will claim Canada, Mexico, and Latin America.
Yes, because he's got this very simplistic, childlike, divided into three attitude. And you know what? I mean, I know we're going to talk globally and we are talking globally, but a word about him just for a minute.
Mm,
Well, it's not even a word about him. The founding fathers, our founding fathers, did a lot of things right. A lot of things right. I mean, they
mm,
were geniuses in many ways.
mm.
What they did not anticipate was a madman, or they did. They said there could be a madman.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we have three branches. What they didn't
Yes.
anticipate was that three branches plus what we call the fourth estate, which is
Mhm.
media, would all be co-opted. That's what they didn't
Yes.
count on. And so that's
No.
why once this felon is felled, um, that won't be the end of it because you can't, he didn't do this by himself, is my point.
Yes. And what it has exposed, and it's alerted other democracies, so much of the system
Yes.
relies on these conventions that a
Yes.
president or a prime minister just wouldn't do that or couldn't
Yes.
do that. When
Yes.
really it only took someone who had the bravado, if nothing else, the sheer callous indifference to law, and we saw
Yes.
it cave,
Well, it's so quaint and so 18th century.
isn't it?
You
It's
know,
so
the
polite.
gentle,
It's
yes, it's so
gentlemen's
polite.
handshakes,
Yes. Yes. And we don't live in that world anymore. I mean, I think that one of the effects of this, and you've said this, we both said this before, is that we will be, in the end, this country right sized. This
mm,
idea of exceptionalism, which has always been exceptionally, what, uh, I mean,
mm.
just arrogant. I mean, for lack of
Yes,
a better
just
word,
that's all you
will
need.
be shown also to be not just obsolete, but delusional, and to have always been delusional. And the fact is, we sold the delusion, did we not, to the world?
Yes, and people responded to the dream and the promise of this egalitarian society, essentially. If you work hard, you can make it.
Right.
You know, and as a sociologist, I could go on for 18 hours without a break talking about what's wrong with that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we all now can see what's wrong
All
with
can
that.
see it. I've always used that funhouse analogy, and to me, the one bright spot, the shining star in the midst of this very dark sky, is the fact that many more of us worldwide realize the funhouse aspect of of this country. You
The
know,
distorted mirrors.
Stored, yes. And I think it's terrific. I know it's disorienting. I know it's thrown a lot of people, off balance, but better to see than not see.
Totally. And that's my optimistic side with all that is going on. in the US particularly. It's hard to stay away from it for a minute.
Yeah, I know.
But people are now questioning capitalism itself in
Yes,
a way
yes,
Americans would never do
yes.
until 5 minutes ago.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we were, capitalism. So if you're my age, your age, as an American, you think of things like the Soviet Union, or you
Mm,
think of Cuba, right?
mm.
And so anything, but yet, what you're right. What's happening now is people are saying, wait, because for example, remember when he said, Bellin, we want immigrants from, the nice countries, like the Nordic
The
countries, the
Scandinavian countries.
Scandinavian countries, because they're white. But what he doesn't think about is why would any of them come here? For what? They have
There would be no
nationalized,
reason.
no reason. Health, education, and welfare are all guaranteed. Are they taxed? Yes. But do they know where their taxes are going? Yes. Do they see it in
Yes.
their everyday lives? Yes, they do.
And top level education.
Yes, education as well. Norway is at the top of the heap in
Mm,
terms of
mm.
education. And here we'll say, oh, well, that's because they have a homogeneous society, which means they don't have to educate the riffraff blacks and Hispanics. That's what they're really saying when they say
I
that.
know, and I'd just like to share a bit of Australian history with you,
Mhm.
because we were only a few million people after the Second World War on this gigantic continent, right?
Yeah,
And so we needed immigration. And so a lot of Southern Europeans came in big numbers. The Greeks, the Italians, the Maltese, and so forth were coming. And this is how racist Australia was, which still had a white Australia policy, right? So they were struggling with this are they white or a bit swarthy, borderline?
Mhm.
So they introduced, it didn't last, but this is the same thing as the felon is saying now. They wanted people from Lithuania and Poland and stuff who'd been ruptured after the war, and they referred to it as the beautiful Balts. They were from the Baltic Sea. They wanted blue-eyed Balts
Yeah,
to counteract that. So this is not a new thing,
yeah,
nor are we immune from this absolutely abject, primitive, hierarchical thinking around race.
and it all stems from economics. It's all money based. That's the thing. It's not that you sort of intrinsically see someone with darker skin and say, ew. No, you had to, because people are all the same, right? So when you're trying to create a structure where there's certain people at the top, you're the sociologist, well, you say,
Mhm.
what are the differentiating factors that we can
Mm.
create, right?
Mm.
And then it gets entrenched into the society. And one of the things I think is great is literally is what you're saying about socialism. The fact that Mamdani in New York, for example,
Mm.
the Democratic Party tried to tear him down. The,
Oh, they hated him.
they hated him. And because he says, I'm a democratic socialist. It's wonderful because now people are saying, wait, what? Wait, why? Why are you a democratic? And when they hear the platform planks, they
Duh.
sound reasonable.
Exactly. It's a revelation to people because
Yeah.
he owned it and would lead with it, and it left them nowhere to go.
Hmm.
And so the Democratic Party itself is always condemned under Trump as the radical far left anyway. Well, let's hear from the radical far left, shall we?
From the radical far left. Yes.
Free childcare, accessible housing, and affordable transport. Is that really evil? How do you pay for it? Which is always the comeback question. Tax the ultra rich.
Right.
End of.
Did you see that
All of that can be provided.
Mitt Romney, the millionaire, waits till
Mhm.
he gets out of office and then last week said, you know what we need to do? We need to tax the rich people like me. Man,
Well,
you're day late
sure,
and a
it's a
dollar
bit like
short.
Bill Barr writing a book after bringing down the
Exactly.
government and saying he was a terrible man.
Exactly.
However, it's still out there in the public space
It's
and it
still out
needs
there.
more millionaires and billionaires to actually say it
That's
because
right.
it gives the others less cover
That's right. That's right.
because they wouldn't even miss it.
No.
And I don't know if you know Scott Galloway.
Mm-mm.
Scott Galloway's work, I'll send you a link or two. I love him. And he's mega wealthy now, makes money in his sleep. I forget how he made his money originally, but it wasn't too dreadful. Uh, but he is really he drums this message home.
Hmm.
He is saying if a family is on $35,000 a year and you talk about 15,000 being added to that, that is a lot. It makes a real difference to that family. He
Absolutely.
said, when you've got the money I have and people like me, 15,000 doesn't even because people can tax the rich, they wouldn't even feel
Feel
it.
it.
And so he keeps coming back with this.
I think the revolution that we're talking about,
Ah,
is going to
it
be
excites me.
it's going to be economic. I think there will be
Yes.
a restructuring of the way that we do economics. I'll tell you something, and something that's going to help that, not to be, I know I'm all American and I'm sorry about that. I'm seizing platform. This Epstein thing,
Hmm.
as I have been saying, okay, the sex part is bad enough. Okay, we get that. The abuse, that's bad enough. But it was a business model.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
a business model. And I think the fact that it was a business model that everybody bought into, that was about the buying and selling of human beings,
Yes.
human chattel, is going to help this argument for democratic socialism
Yes.
in the end.
Yes. And I think as more people stand up and say it,
Yep,
like anything, it's all about the timing and the wave,
that's right. That's right.
right? So by Mamdani, fresh young thing, how old is he? He's 32 or something, bless.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, he's not going to be able to implement plans A, B,
That's
C,
right.
and D
That's right.
because the system still isn't ready for
Right.
it. But what he can do is say, well, if we taxed Apple and Google X% in New York, we could afford that. If we tackled Microsoft here, we could afford that. And if we did this for the high end of the stock market, we could afford it all, right?
And this will
So I
make
think,
people say, wait a minute, wait a
yeah,
minute.
exactly. That's all it's got to do
That's right. That's
is
right.
make people prop and have a think. Because otherwise, even kind people think, oh, it's a pipe dream. It'd be
Right.
nice. That's utopia. Can't afford it. And I think this is what the Dems need to do. And remember back in the Clinton years, they had a similar system called pay go. If you could find a way to fund a program, it could go ahead. And
Mhm.
that was the beginnings, and it came and went. But
Yeah.
I think this is the trick that people have to stand up with and say, if we only tax Google 1%, we could afford da da da. Do the numbers properly,
Do you know what,
economically.
though? Here's the thing. I would love to say that the Democrats will say, oh my God, yes, Eureka, we are the party of the people. That's what we should do.
Oh, yeah,
That's
but they're
not
not
going
there
to
yet.
happen. They're not
They're not there yet. And this is going to be their Waterloo.
a
They
hundred
have
percent.
this opportunity now, right?
Yeah, well, you heard about their autopsy. It's such an unfortunate word.
Yeah.
Remember back when the Republicans did their autopsy? And I remember I said to myself, okay, who thought that was a good word? Because
Mm,
bottom line, what it means is that something is dead, and now
mm.
you're gonna
Dissected.
dissect it. Okay. But I mean, I guess the reality is that's true. They lost everything, so they wanted to see what happened. Well, so
Mm,
the Democrats have taken up the same term, they can't even say post-mortem. I don't know. For me,
mhm.
autopsy is like worse. But anyway,
Yeah.
autopsy, they have a report, but they've decided to squash it. They're not making it public.
Exactly. And the problem, as I see it looking forward, 2026, the Dems, if they do nothing different, they'll still do extremely well in the midterms because, they'll
Right.
get the tail flip. So outside of, total theft and
Right.
stuff,
But they
they
won't
should do
make
really well. And I'm worried they're going to think that's enough,
exactly.
but
Exactly.
it's not enough
No.
and it will never be enough again.
Well, you know what? One of the I read somewhere uh, there was another group that did an autopsy and they published their autopsy. And one of the findings that I remember them talking about is the fact that the Democrats, courted corporations, corporate money.
Yeah, yeah.
So they don't want that out. Because
Mm.
people would say, now that we've got this sort of socialist, democratic socialist bug in people's ear, wait, you courted whom? You did what?
Yes, yes, yes.
You know,
And
and
in a way, APAC is representing
yes,
that as
yes,
if there aren't another 100 big corporate donors, but somehow always something rises to the top as representative of it. And then
absolutely.
they're in their pockets.
Exactly.
So that system, along with many other things, has to change. Just stop corporate donations.
That's
Sorry,
right.
can't. If an individual in one of those corporations wants to donate, there should be a ceiling, let's say, of $5,000, and that's it. Take the big money because what's happened, it was always thus in the sense of big companies were lobbying government. When we
Right.
hear the word lobbying,
That's
our
right.
association at our age meant they had influence,
Right.
right? They would get the 2 hour lunches
Right.
and they would have the ear of that politician. Now it's got so graphic and so out of control that they actually just buy the vote
By the vote. Yes.
of that politician. Instead of that politician then having to do political work on behalf of the country, which was bad enough, in a certain.
Yeah.
Now it's exposed for what it is, just buying policies outright that
Well, you know
work for
what
the rich.
though? Look, if you are a politician, I could see you saying to yourself, and that's a problem. Why? Like, it's
Mhm.
lining my pocket. So when I talk about revolution, I mean there has to be pressure from people on
Yes,
politicians.
yes,
Do you know what
yes,
I mean? I mean, and we're going to
yes.
talk about this later in terms of what can people do, but I would like to get, I'm sorry, I tore us off the track and I apologize.
No, no, we're still on a
But
double
I would
track.
love to hear what you heard in Europe. What are people's perception of the disaster
Well,
that's
I think there were
going
two
on?
takeaways, if not three. The main one being, and I want to reassure Americans about this, most Europeans are perfectly capable of distinguishing between Democratic voters who are horrified and traumatized by what's happening in their name and the government. They can make that distinction. What they don't understand is the lack of pressure. You just brought up the word. They don't understand the lack of pressure. And people would say, why isn't there a no King's March every week? Why isn't there 1 million people surrounding the Supreme Court to reverse the immunity
You know
decision?
what? I think that is a great thing. And so I've dealt with this a lot on my channel. So we had the No Kings. There was supposed to be a boycott right before Thanksgiving,
Mm.
uh, and what is it called? Blackout, whatever.
Yeah.
Blackout. I had people on my channel. Now, mind you, these are good, good and great
Decent
people,
people.
all lovely people. Thrilled to have them. The trolls don't exist on my channel, and I'm very happy about that. But they would say things to me like, well, that's the day before Thanksgiving. Well, that's coming up on Easter. So, in
Mm.
other words, well, Americans who are newly waking up, I'm just going to put it like that. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say Black Americans because we already got the memo. I mean,
Mm.
obviously, but Americans writ large, if it's inconvenient,
Mm.
they're not going to do it. And I
Yeah. And
think that
this is,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, exactly. But back to Charlie Angus's term. Resistance without borders.
Mhm.
Resistance and protest that lead to change require sacrifices.
Exactly.
And people are very reluctant to put
Yes,
themselves out instead of saying to their family, Nana's not going to do Thanksgiving this year because of X, or, my mother-in-law has said, let's not do that. Let's give our money to this
yes,
for Christmas instead of something else. That's where the resistance really starts to get teeth and have power. When people
absolutely.
are tired after work, but they're still prepared to put in an hour to a million person protest outside the Supreme Court or whatever.
Well, this is where it comes, this is why our being a young nation relative, let's say in this case to Europe,
Mm.
shows our callow youth and sort of inexperience with gross hardship as a nation
Yes.
shows. I mean, when people did the bus boycott in Montgomery, for months they walked to work. It's not like they didn't go to
Yes.
work. It's not like they could drive. They
They
didn't have cars.
walked
They
to
walked.
work.
If they would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's how long the walk would be, to get
Yeah.
there at 9 o'clock in the morning. They
Yes.
just did it.
That's how you build pressure. That is sacrifice. And under threat at all points
Right.
of that, for
Exactly.
people to still do it and support each other in doing it.
Right.
It is so imperative that people are prepared to extend themselves
Well,
in some way out of the comfort zone.
we're seeing a little bit of that, I do think, with the ICE raids. People
Mm.
are
Yes,
are stepping out of their comfort zones to
yes, they've got
protect and
codes and
defend.
whistles and
Mm. And so that can be sort of the model for how the rest of this should work, because I mean, that's great that they're doing that, and I think that's a good and an important thing. But again, there are so many spokes to this wheel that if we implemented those same tactics and ones like them in many different spheres, everybody
yes,
would have a role to play. In other words, there's no role that's too small. For example, do you know that there are laws against giving people food and water in when they're waiting in line to vote?
intellectually. That went
What?
round the world, Erica.
What?
People could not
Right.
believe
So
the
people need to,
pettiness
right.
and
But you
obscenity.
people are very much they want to be law abiding. You want to be pro law enforcement, whatever. What about saying, I'm going to go get a case of water
Mm-hmm.
and come hell or high water, I'm going to be there with my water and handing it out to people online? Because why are they having to wait online in the hot
All
sun
of
for
that.
hours to cast to vote in the first place? So,
Mm,
so, we have this, I don't know, it's this American tension between, what the right thing is to do.
mm,
I mean, my mother explained this to us when we were little. My father was arrested, and it was televised uh, down south. He's working with Dr. King. And my brothers, I had two little brothers, and they were horrified that the
mm,
police, who were the good guys, were arresting our father and putting him in handcuffs. And my mother explained, sometimes good people have to disobey bad laws. And
mm,
so I bring that, half a century forward and say,
mm,
there are good people in our audience, right, in our
mm,
listenership, who are being called upon to disobey bad laws. And it can be something as simple as putting together peanut butter sandwiches and handing them out with a bottle of water. If that's what your
yeah,
wheelhouse is,
yes. And
that
what John Lewis used to refer to as making good trouble.
good trouble. Absolutely. That is
Yeah.
good trouble.
And I was surprised, a viewer wrote to me, she's a teacher in North Carolina, I think middle school, and all the kids, I guess, who chose to do it, I don't think they were made to do it, and parents would have been involved,
Right.
left the school to protest ICE in
Mhm.
ICE
Mhm.
arrests in North Carolina.
Mhm.
That is really important. She could well lose her job.
She
You know,
will probably lose her job, and the kids will also be penalized. They'll be put in detention.
however, Just like you remember your family story from 50 years ago, they'll remember that story in 50 years' time when hopefully America is a different place with a different relationship to wealth disparity. Because that's what it's all about. It's not that there's not enough money in these things, there's
Right.
mountains of money, but it's all up here.
That's right.
It's about sharing the pie.
And to
And
bring it
when
back
people
to the
realize they're entitled to the
to the
pie,
pie. That's right. Just
instead
by
of
virtue,
worshipping the guy who's got the
yes,
icing on the pie,
yes, who says, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you too, one day, maybe
yeah,
can have what I have. That is not how it works.
not how
But
it
the other
works.
thing is,
And
mhm,
it always comes back to racism with the economy
oh yeah,
too, because for I hate these terms, black and brown people, but within the context of the discussion,
right,
you can't win. So if a black or brown family is struggling, that's because they're lazy and they have too many kids.
right.
That's just what it is, right? If you're doing well, it's because of DEI, and you didn't deserve to get there and you're taking my kid's place, right? So it's covered. No matter where you sit on the economic spectrum,
Well,
the racist definition is total.
this administration has gone that one better. So, for example, there is no DEI. For example, 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs in the federal workforce. So they took care of that. That's not even a thing. I want to bring it back to Europe, though, and to the rest of the world and say, it's great that the rest of the world understands that we are not him. But, but
Yeah.
the longer it takes us to get off our
Yes.
butts and
Yeah.
protest him in real ways, the more people around the world are going to say, wait a minute, I was willing to give the people the benefit of the doubt. They look
Mm.
like they're horrified, they seem like they're sad, but wait a minute, they're not doing anything. So, complicity, silence is complicity.
And
Inaction
complicity
is
is
complicity.
consent. And so,
And complicity is consent. So it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. It doesn't take
yeah,
much of a leap for people from not the United States to say, no, you must be on his side. Because how can I think
yeah,
different? If you don't
yes,
want that to
exactly.
happen, viewers, action is called for. Action is
Action
called for.
and continual
Mhm.
action.
That's right.
And I think with Europe, because they're dealing with their whole drift, not drift, a movement to the far right.
Yes.
Oh. Now, what is fueling that? Fueling that is immigration from the wars that we in the West, the US, Australia went into Iraq with you guys, Afghanistan, and later Syria.
Hmm.
This is where war-torn countries produce desperate refugees that become the problem immigrants
Right.
to the far right.
Right.
And so we don't look back that couple of steps of they'd rather be living still in Syria or in their own homes, but
Exactly.
they've been forced out by our foreign policies.
Exactly.
Okay, we need to take responsibility, and then the far right runs with that.
That's right.
So I think
And it becomes a
that
race, and it's
nexus,
race again, all over again. It
it's
becomes
all
a
about
race.
visibility.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always about visibility. I know. But just we're jumping, I'm sorry, everywhere.
That's
Just
about
back
it.
to
They can keep
DEI
it.
for a moment. It was a shock, I think, for many people in GOP states to find out that the 88,000 veterans who were sacked were there as DEI appointments because DEI is not just scooping people off the streets, it's because there's a systemic issue about getting employment that can accommodate your disabilities or whatever. And 60-year-old white women who were getting sacked, they go, what about me? What about me? Because it was an age thing. And so they forget it wasn't gifts wrapped in tinsel.
Right.
It was an acknowledgement of systemic barriers to work. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I mean, and I saw this months ago. You did too. people are going to have to learn the hard way. It's going to have to be either something that happens within their four walls or their neighbor down the street or the bodega that they used to go to that now they can't go because the guy uh, until things hit people personally, they don't seem to get the urgency, the fierce urgency.
Exactly. And that's why we coming with the experience and hopefully compassion that we represent can see why looking after everybody is in everybody's best interest,
Exactly.
which should be a Christian value, as it should be a Jewish value and an
A
Islamic
Muslim,
value, and all
all of
the
it.
Abrahamic
Exactly.
religions allegedly say the same thing, but it's not in practice
Right.
with these. Until they get that,
Right.
they're not going to really progress in their thinking. So I just saw in this morning's news in Florida,
Mhm.
which is, retirement central for a lot of reasons, climate, no taxes, and people have to get it. That's the other thing. It's not about paying taxes or not paying taxes. It's about, you touched on it when you said in the Scandinavian countries, people can see where their taxes go.
Right.
And Americans have to realize the answer's not no tax, it's seeing where their taxes go.
Exactly.
So, but thanks to the big, dreadful bill, people are going to be turfed out of nursing homes in
Yep.
huge numbers.
Yep.
60%, I think, are subsidized by Medicare. They're going to
That's
be
right.
turfed out.
That's right.
Of the care workers, 60%, no, sorry, 40% of in-home care workers are non-Anglos, many from Haiti. It's geography. Geography speaks,
Sure.
And
So
so
how's that going to
by
work?
going, yeah, yeah, deport, deport, everyone is brown, suddenly, who's going to wipe your grandmother's ass? I'm sorry
That's
to
right.
put it so
That's right.
crudely,
That's right. That's right. That's
right?
right.
And it will impact people, and
I
do you
know.
think they'll be surprised, surely?
They
Because they
will
seem
be,
to be.
they will, yes, they will be
They
surprised
seem to be
because
surprised.
it's that human thing of just you hear what you want to hear, you see what you want to see until there's no avoiding what is real. And
Yes.
this is where we are. I know we were going to talk about the fact that both you and I uh, have people asking us still, how long? Here we are
Oh,
on the
yeah.
cusp
When
of
is
the
this
new
going
year.
to end?
When is this going to end? I can't take any more. I'm exhausted. Sometimes people will say, I'm old. I'm old too. And
Mm.
I will, what I always say is that you could, and I will have people who come to my channel and I'll say whatever I say, and they'll say, well, I'm unsubscribing because so and so said it's going to be great. And fifth
In
dimension, we're
April.
going
Yeah.
to,
Yes. It's going to be good.
and
I think my answer to that,
mhm.
because I get it a lot too, is, and I actually type this back if it's a comment, and just say, when the American people rise up and say enough,
Well, that's it. That's it. And it
that's when it's going to end.
it has to be a critical mass of us. I know people
Exactly.
think that they pulled the lever for the candidate or they wrote in, Kamala's name and it didn't work out. So now they're just going to throw their hands up and say they're tired. You could be tired when you're dead. It's not time to be
Yes.
tired yet. And when you come to someone like my page or Lena's page, um, and you hear what you hear, if you like the trajectory that you're hearing we're talking about, then that's great. If you don't, the reason that you go to a reader or you listen to what we say is to see a trajectory, just to see the energy and where it looks like it's going. But energy is mutable. Nothing is written in stone. And if you
The
see a
fate
pattern,
is not decided
no, it's not. And
at this point.
Absolutely not. And thoughts become things. So if you see something and you think, I don't like that, I think it should be whatever, you can make that happen. And I know that sounds very woo woo, but it's actually not. It's actually physics, is what it is.
Mm. Yes.
It's actually
Butterfly
physics.
wing in the Amazon. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, again, every action that you take, small or large, if you can't move a muscle and you're trapped in your bed, you can pray and you can set intention,
I think
right?
that's a beautiful thought. And that's exactly what I think we all, as global citizens, need to do as well. So it's perfectly understandable to be feeling burnt out, exhausted, literally traumatized, but don't let that paralyze you because then they've won.
Right.
And
That's what they're
they
waiting
want that. That's
for.
what they want, and they're doing very well. So going into the new year is a really good time to set your intentions to say, okay, we are going to be bombarded with endless stuff, a lot of which is really important, but you can't even process it because there's more on top. And so
Right.
to really try and sit back and think clearly and go, well, I can't engage with all of it, but where does my passion and interest lie? What can I do to make this thing better?
Right.
So it might be as more and more people lose their jobs, they then lose their apartments, they can no longer keep their pets. It might be coordinating a pet rescue in your neighborhood or foster minding while people are in between apartments. Or if you're a retired teacher, can you help some kid with literacy issues because that changes lives? And by spending 2 hours a week with that child, could make a huge difference to that person's life. And there are always things we can do. It's
There are
not
always
always
things we can.
about,
That's right.
in fact, it should not be about 24/7.
No. Right.
The other thing I suggest to people in practical terms too is one at night at a certain point, depending on your personal routine. It might be 5 in the afternoon, it might be 8 o'clock at night, whatever. Don't consume any more negative news past your cutoff point and put something positive on instead. So you can start the next day and follow up with what's going on, but you have a cutoff point that allows your deep brain
To
to
rest.
regularly relax. It's
Yes.
something that we can all do. And one more thing that I think is underrated and so important, music, Erica.
Yes. Well, I saw someone say recently that, music originated as our way to talk to the gods, to talk to the new
And
and
them to us.
you know. And so yeah, I agree with you. I think music is really important.
So, generally what happens just as we get older and busier and more preoccupied with the mundane world, when we think back when we were young, what a huge role music played in our
Yeah,
life and our loves.
right.
Um, So I'd recommend to people make up a playlist or just improvise of your favorite tunes from when you were 22, and they transport you
Hmm. That's
in
great.
that
And
way.
you know what? Share the playlist. Share the
Share
playlist.
the playlist. What a great idea. Share the playlist. And you could have 8 people in your group, for example, and it's one playlist a week or whatever. And then also there's on YouTube a million options for esoteric music. It's not my particular bag,
Hmm.
but it can work for some people. So you can get Angel Raphael music or Archangel Gabriel music. I went through a bit of a weird stage last year. I got obsessed with Gregorian
I love
chants.
Gregorian chant. It's very meditative. It's beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's very
Isn't it?
meditative. Absolutely.
Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness. Um,
There
and
have to be
also
ways that we unplug
unplug and
so
then
that we
get your
can plug
energy
back
back.
in.
to dive back in. I think
Right,
that's our overarching message.
right.
But just talking about the Gregorian chants, there are some nunneries that do them, but primarily it's men's
Yeah,
voices. And at this time, where it's another video in itself, the divine feminine
yeah.
and the divine masculine, at this time in history, I think it's very healing to have meditative men's
I
voices
agree.
oming out to other men.
Yep,
And what's interesting too, just jumping back to the mundane for a moment, this last election, and regardless of whether Kamala should have won it or not, and I'm in that camp, I think she probably did get over the line. And it was still very close, 1.5%. But he benefited from the twisted Latino vote, because
yep.
they all thought it wasn't them, and the youth vote, particularly young men.
Young men.
And I saw a stat yesterday where he was just before that last election, he was up 20 points or something with young men because they can't identify with Democrats in their current form. It's now minus 40. So in this year, he's gone from plus 20 to minus 40 with
Oh,
young
that's
men.
interesting. That,
Isn't it fascinating?
some of that could be the fallout from the Turning Point USA business because
Absolutely.
they're not going to accept Erica Kirk as their leader.
No.
Not going to happen. Nor does she have a message that young women are interested in
Oh,
hearing.
exactly. Exactly. The hypocrisy
Yeah,
of these Christian right women of power,
yeah.
you know,
Telling
that
women be
doesn't matter who
barefoot
you,
in the kitchen. Yeah,
they have huge careers. Obviously, they have au pairs, plural,
right,
to be
right,
looking after the children,
right.
but they want you to stay at home.
Right. I think it, one of the interesting thing that's happening is to watch the implosion of MAGA, especially in that manosphere, in that particular manosphere.
Isn't it bliss to watch?
Well, it's bliss to watch, but it's also really important to say, how can, what can we, the rest of us, do to create a space or to be a space that they can say, oh, we were lost and now we want to be
Now I'm found. Yes,
you
yes.
know um because I have a nephew. This kid has dark skin. It's the son of my brother. Dark skin, and he is a graper.
Mm,
He
mm.
is in there with Nick Fuentes.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's the colored eye, what is it, the bluest eye syndrome, where you think that proximity to that kind of
yes.
thing is going to confer upon you honorary status, and it is not. It is not.
No. And look at the Proud Boys,
Yep.
led by Enrico Torres and all these others with Latino names. And you
Yep.
go,
Yes.
bro,
Yeah.
they
Bro.
don't want
Well,
you at the barbecue.
no, I
They
mean, like
don't want you.
Vivek Ramaswamy apparently
Yeah.
was at Turning Point USA, and he gave a speech about how, they really shouldn't be racist. And I mean, do they, what? So I think that when all of these people realize who's who and what's what, I always say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And we
Yes.
will be
Hence Marjorie
surprised.
Taylor Greene.
Exactly, exactly, because she is still shady,
Oh, it
but
must not be forgiven. But she
it
has
must
a
not be.
role.
No, but she has a role. That's exactly right. And I always say when we storm Versailles, not that's the Bastille, but when we storm Versailles, you're going to be surprised at who's on the right or the left of you.
And we've got to be there with our arms linked.
Linking arms, exactly. We have to be willing to link arms and ready to link arms.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'll tell you
Um,
something. I'm really excited for the next year and the one
yes.
after that. I think there again largely because I've seen way more waking up than I've ever seen in this country ever.
Absolutely.
And is
And
it
like you say,
born?
it's one by one,
It's one by one. Is it
but
born
then
of
one leads to four, leads to
one?
six. Do.
Exactly, exactly. And is it born of personal pain? Yes, it is. And I'm sorry for that. I am. I'm sorry for that.
Mm,
But all wisdom is born of some sort of discomfort, right? I mean,
yeah.
so welcome to the club. If you're
Yeah.
experiencing discomfort, it's part of the human condition. And I'm really, I think that as I said when I was looking at Christmas, the Christmas period, and what my cards showed me is that there would be no respite from Epstein. In fact, it would
Mm,
only be a ramping up. And way leads on to way. Epstein is one thing, but again, that corporate structure that all of
yeah.
those,
Yeah.
well, people of means were part of the buying and selling of, let me just say, predominantly young white
Mm-hmm.
flesh. If that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't wake people up,
Mm-hmm.
so I think this is just going to be, another marker on the board that will move us towards what we want to see, which I think is democratic socialism or some version of it that is
Exactly.
compatible
And either democratic socialism or failure.
or fail. That's the only alternative.
Right?
Yes.
That's the real choice.
Yes, because where we are is where Rome was,
Exactly.
right?
And I think the other thing, because I do believe on an esoteric level, where as humans, we're being given a boost and an
Yes.
opportunity to change how we think for the higher good.
Yes.
And if we meet that moment, then the rewards come.
That's right. Way leads on to way.
Mm.
That's right.
Yes. So once people start to question the very basics that Mamdani raised, for example, they start to question other things that they hear and see.
Right.
Just as
And
they did in the negative space, they can now do
exactly.
it in a positive space.
And when you look at the fact that there is desperation, I always say the rat in the corner, when the light goes up, the rat in the corner will be the things that are happening with corporate media, where
Mm,
certain stories aren't covered, like
mm.
the CBS 60 Minutes story on
Shocking. Yeah.
CCOT, and she squished it. But guess what? Canada picked it up. What Americans should say to themselves is, so wait, I had to get a Canadian pass, right, to see a
Mm,
story about something that's happening that my country
exactly.
is doing. That's not right. We're
Yeah.
very blessed that with the downfall of corporate media, there has been this proliferation of independent media, of which you and
Yes.
I are kind of
Yeah, we're
tangentially a
there on
part.
the edges,
Yeah,
you
we're
know.
as pundits, but
Yeah.
all of that is really important. So that's something else you can do is, make use of news sources that are going to tell you what you're looking for, what you're needing to hear about. Because
Mm.
here, I think there's going to be more and more shutting down of information by media sources that we grew up with. Everybody knew 60 Minutes, CBS.
Yes,
See?
and that they capitulated to the extent they have and are
So
still doing
fast.
the same with the universities.
Yes.
They didn't even put up a fight.
No,
Just where do we sign, Mr.
it,
President?
it's
No,
te-
who can
it's
control our
terrible.
curriculums? What?
I know.
What?
Right, right.
So that abrogation of morality by big law companies too,
Yes. Well,
but
again,
also what's happening.
it
Yeah.
starts with this what we said in the very beginning, this sort of idea that gentlemen's agreements were going to be gentlemen's agreements and that
Yeah.
everybody was an honorable broker. And if somebody is less than honorable and shows uh more what firepower, so to speak, what the whole
Yes.
thing crumbles. That's not how this should work.
That's not how it should work. So I think people are going to be asking very big questions.
Which is
And
great.
also, it's like for many people who aren't interested in how many homeless there are in their state or even belittle those who are homeless, there's going to be a surge of homelessness
Yep.
because of the lack of work. And so, are you still going to be indifferent to that? Or are you going to press your local authorities to respond more humanely?
Right. How about the fact that with insurance subsidies, insurance premiums, et cetera, going up, and you're going to say, well, oh, I'll just go to the emergency room. What emergency room? The emergency rooms are
Yes,
closed.
hospitals are closing
I
like
mean,
this.
how are they supposed to fund themselves with no income? So I think we have a lot more pain coming that
Oh,
is
just one little
necessary.
moment from Italy. Uh, there was graffiti repeated quite a few places. I was in Venice about Luigi Mangione,
Mm,
the
mm.
shooter, and saying things like, defend Luigi, the real criminal is the health system.
Well, I mean, it's been really interesting. He gets tons of fan mail, people putting money in his commissary account. It looks like, I don't know if you heard this when you were away, it looks like the case may fall apart, at least
May
insofar
fall
as
over.
the death penalty, but the whole thing could fall over if they didn't Mirandize him. What?
Yes, yes. And all the documents are not in order and
No,
not
they're not in order.
sufficient.
And they searched him I mean, if you think they said they were looking for a bomb, is that the order of operations that you stand there in the place in the McDonald's and search them? If you think there's a bomb, why have you not evacuated the area?
Yes, yeah.
So there's a lot of things. I mean, now again, should you go up to somebody and do what he did to that guy?
No,
No,
I am not defending the
no,
action,
no.
but it's
But
important to understand the motivation,
exactly,
not the action, not the
exactly,
best way to do it, Luigi.
exactly.
No.
No,
However, it's like we were talking earlier about sacrifice or something. Certain people go above and beyond and they become notionally representative of that issue. You
right,
know.
right. Well, it's
So,
kind of like the felon who is uh, representative of all that is not good about this country
and about humans.
and humans. He holds up a mirror. I think that's why he came here. Uh,
Yes, I do too. I do too.
his egoic self would say, "Nah, I just came here to make money and be famous." But on a soul level, I think that he was here to show us who we are as human beings,
At the
who we have
most
been.
individualistic, at the most selfish, at the most
Yes,
self-serving,
yes,
the
and
most indifferent to
to show
suffering
us what needs to be
done.
dismantled.
Yes,
So,
yes,
you know, it's not all for naught. The question is, what do we do with this lesson that we're being shown,
yes,
and
yes.
that
So,
we have
and
the
to
power
help
to
each
change.
other, well, if someone you know is really struggling with this, those things we were saying about coping apply generally to our neighbours and our friendship
Right?
groups and connect with other people. If you haven't rung a friend for 6 years or 8 years, make an effort.
Exactly.
Connection,
Exactly.
connection.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, I am glad that you and I have this connection, and that we meet every month, and that we feel like we're in each other's living rooms having these conversations.
Yes, look at this.
Yes,
Yes, totally.
and we will do it again in January. So everybody, fight the good fight. Get your
Yeah.
rest this week. Enjoy the
And make
holidays as
good
you can,
trouble.
and make good trouble. Absolutely.
That's
So we will both see you on our respective channels, and we'll be here again together in January. And I'm wishing you all a very happy New Year. Take care.
Thank you, Erica.